Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Fuse Meets. I wish you all an amazing start to 2024. As always, thanks for supporting us on our journey, and it's really exciting to be back, and we can't wait to get into 2024. It's already shaping up to be a really critical year for Fuse Network, and we're going to define it more clearly through the lens of the products and services that are building and launching real-world solutions on Fuse. So that's why we're here today. Today, we're delighted to have Gabriel Saunyama, CEO and co-founder of Chromepay with us. And we're going to discuss their project, which is on Fuse Network. How you doing today, Gabriel? Hope you had a good time over the holidays, man. How you doing?
Oh, hey, Ian. Thanks so much for having me. Doing pretty great. Got to rest and looking forward to 2024. A lot of things, big things coming through for us.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's the key message, right? Big things coming for 2024. But before we dive really deep into Chromepay and kind of unravel all of that, I want to start from the beginning, Gabriel. I'd like to get an idea of who I am, who I'm talking to, and I think the community also appreciates that. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you end up in Web3? Are you a native or are you a newbie? And then just touch on how Chromepay came around.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me again. Basically, Chromepay was founded alongside myself and my two other co-founders, Masha Zanza and Sumi Tariani. We've all known each other for a pretty long time. Working within the financial space. We're mainly motivated with financial inclusion and actually promoting promotion of digital financial services within neglected communities. So that's actually how we got into that. In short, we weren't always a Web3 company. We're mainly focused on Web2 solutions and started seeing the value of certain Web3 capabilities that could be utilized to actually promote the advancement of digital financial services within Africa, right? So if I just wrap it up a little bit, I'll just say this. If we're looking today, right, within the continent of Africa, there's things that really slow down the adoption of financial services. And those three things to us are low financial literacy, right, where people will not understand the value of digital financial services, even if they have a phone, but if you don't have the right education or the tools, you wouldn't know how to utilize them, right? Secondly, is the issue of lack of technological infrastructure. So maybe you might not have the phone, right? But you have the education, or you might not have a mobile network in your area to access a digital financial service. And lastly is the issue of actually authenticating yourself, proving who you are in order to access a financial service. And that's what actually Chromepay addresses. So that's basically a bit about who we are and what we do.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I mean, it's I'm really happy that you touched on sort of the you're working in Africa, more specifically Kenya, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's like
actually focused in three major markets, such as Nigeria, Ethiopia, and actually expanding into Tanzania as well. So that's where we are in the geographies.
nice.
So we are not limited only to that. We are basically aiming to address markets which are facing similar issues, because this is a bigger problem.
It's an interesting topic because some of the things you discuss, it's like in the Western world, perhaps we feel these are not relevant to us, but it's just so like access to financial literacy and all these other things are so relevant. It's just, yeah, it's interesting to listen to it. It's a different sort of situation. So yeah, that's why I wanted to get that kind of narrative in place before we go forward.
Sure.
In terms of like, give me an overview of Chromepay's mission. Like, so we talked, it's digital identity that you're focused on. So give me a sort of overview of the mission, the values, and how are they guiding what you're doing in the direction that you're headed, not just this year, but, totally.
Okay. So we really focus on being Africa's gateway to digital financial services and really creating value for the undervalued, right? As you mentioned before, having an ID or some way of authenticating yourself doesn't seem like a big deal to us, right? Like, to most people within developed countries. But if you look at it, like in a continent like Africa, you end up seeing that when you don't have a trusted form of ID, it makes it hard to access very basic services. Like, for instance, if I'm a small scale farmer, a merchant, I may need a small, SME loan, which can help advance my business. But the fact that I don't have access to a trusted form of identity, that can really limit me. So everything I'm doing is probably the bare minimum. So what we're trying to do here is we're not really trying to change how things are, but we're trying to enhance sectors for people, like the financial sector, and enhance people's lives by not changing how they operate, but giving them access to things that can actually improve the way they work today. So,
Yes.
so if you see, one of the key things is credit. Other important things with financial services such as savings, etc. But credit is another important thing. So yeah, that's some of our key values basically being Africa's gateway to digital financial services by giving individuals the key to do so, which is identity, and also creating value for the undervalued.
It's a really important mission as well, because you've got such great talent and ideas, and it's access to capital is what restricts that most of the time, right? So it's a great idea to move forward with. More specifically, though, Gabriel, what are you building with the Chromepay app? It's a mobile app, and but tell us more about the actual app and what it lets people do, and why it's so relevant.
Okay, perfect. So if you look at the problem, is that right now, right, roughly it's about 1.3 billion Africans today in the continent, right? And out of those 1.3, about 500 million, 500 million specifically, don't have access to a trusted form of ID. So they could have a piece of paper which is written, but written with a pen, etc., and isn't necessarily connected to any database to check if they're real or not. So this makes a challenge for two, for two groups. First group is the financial service providers. They're not able to actually scale and actually grow into new markets or serve the customers they want to. They're very limited by the number of individuals they can serve. They can usually serve individuals with maybe a driver's license, which is a higher form of identity, or a passport. But not everyone has those types of things, right? And for the second group is actually the consumers, right? It's a challenge for them because now they can access these services like we mentioned before, like the credit, digital savings, insurance, etc. So what we do is we help financial institutions, right? We provide them the digital onboarding solution where we allow them to create a unique digital ID that enables them to provide digital financial services to end users, and vice versa, allowing the customer to access these digital financial services from the financial service provider. So that's actually our focus.
It's a really interesting point that you made about the financial service provider. Being a bit naive, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about the end user, but obviously the financial service providers are keen to expand their business and bring more people into their services, aren't they? So interesting that you mentioned that as well, and not something I'd thought of. A bit silly of me, really. Okay, cool. So it's about identity and about giving people identity to enable them to then access the services that they can't currently get their hands on, and which would help the country and the specific nations rise. What kind of features and innovations are you trying to offer with Chromepay? That's because there's other solutions similar to this in the market, I'm sure, of some variety. But what is it about Chromepay that sets it off, makes it a bit different?
Okay. So obviously the first thing we mentioned before is, the financial services have already been developed, right? There's banks, there's fintechs, they provide these different financial services, but most individuals don't have the key to accessing those services. So I think obviously the first layer of what we do is providing you with that unique ID that can give you access to these financial services. But on top of that, we go beyond just authentication. What I mean by that is we have a second layer where we actually enable these financial institutions to perform risk assessments before offering credit or other risk-based solutions to their clients. So we don't just only have one use case, but we have other multiple use cases which you can basically utilize our solution for, right? And to take it a step further, which is very important, right, is that you see that in a lot of areas, there may not be a bit of like local internet connectivity, etc. So our technology actually works in low connectivity areas where we can actually enable them to onboard individuals, right, in a very remote region and create a unique ID, and then later on sync with the government, with the bank's databases as well. So that's some of the key things that we do focus on. One thing I'd like to add is that with our solution, it helps the client because we're not only providing this ID, but we're also integrating different services around it, right? So like I mentioned before, we've got the authentication, the risk assessments, etc. But we also start actually introducing new financial services into our ecosystem that are all tied and linked to the client's digital ID. So for instance, example could be like crop insurance, right? So let's say small scale farmers, when there's droughts, etc., they can basically, because they're in our ecosystem, they can utilize our ID to actually find different insurance providers and apply for crop insurance, which is then send them digitally. Or even micro pensions. Up until now, there wasn't programs put in place to provide people within the informal sector, such as a merchant, a farmer with a pension, social security. But now there's different innovations coming up, and we can link them with these key players that are actually providing things like micro pensions, which can also help their families. So there's some of the key different financial services that can be integrated into our system and also be unlocked. We're not just an authentication company, but we also bridge you with those financial services whilst when you enter into our ecosystem.
Sure. So, okay, I'm going to dive into that a bit more later about the sort of partnerships and the people that you work, because you're mentioning, government bodies. You've got to be on board with the banks in order to make these systems work. So we'll jump into that a little bit deeper in a second. But another question I have to ask, obviously, why are you building on Fuse, Gabriel? Like, why did you choose Fuse as a partner or a collaborator? What advantages do we give you and launching on Fuse? What kind of advantages do you think launching with Fuse will bring to Chromepay?
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, the first thing is we basically see that Fuse goals align with Chromepay's goals as well, right? Building technology that's accessible not only just to the Web3 community, but to other communities beyond that. We have Web3 aspects, and our technology's foundation is also Web3. But what we do at Chromepay is we value combining Web2 and Web3 aspects together, right? Especially in the markets we're in. So Fuse's technology and methodologies as well, and we basically align with what we are aiming to do as well. Secondly, is actually technology itself. We weren't always Web3 developers. We basically kind of like wandered into this area. So it was a good stepping stone for us, being able to access APIs that we were able to use. That our company is a Web2 company was much easier to understand, as opposed to just us simply diving into Solidity instead of trying to learn from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And the last thing I'd like to add from this is another important thing is our foundation is the identity aspect, the digital onboarding of clients, right? So we're not focusing on only just on developing payment solutions in terms of payment services. So the fact that we're able to focus on improving our solution and then utilizes Fuse infrastructure to introduce new payment services which are already pre-built and on the Fuse network already is very advantageous for us. We don't have to be worrying about building multiple things. We can focus on our actual product and be integrating and different functionalities that Fuse network has to offer.
I think that's the really important thing, is like handpicking the elements that you require to build like an off-the-shelf solution, right? That's one of the, that's kind of the answer I wanted you to give, Gabriel. So that's brilliant. But that's what Fuse is all about. So I'm really happy to hear you say that. Do you think, just as a little point on that, go to market, going to market is extremely important to have speed. Obviously, you need to be ready. But do you think the partnership has helped you go to market faster with this idea, or maybe not?
Yeah, definitely. The partnership has definitely helped us to go to market much faster. Obviously today we're live and growing. But this has been something which has been very, very helpful for us. Since we started working with you. Sure.
That's really cool, man. Okay, so in terms of like the app itself, let's talk about the partnerships and the collaborations a little bit, because they're going to be vital for your kind of growth, aren't they, and expansion. So tell us a little bit more, because you mentioned government bodies, banks. How are you getting in, how are you dealing with these people, and how is that process, and how is it going, I suppose?
Sure. So we do work with we do value working with private and public sector organizations, basically. Right. This is the key to our success, right? So for us to actually reach the customer, we do partner with these organizations because they have large networks. Banks are working with large existing sort of customer bases, they have the branches, etc. And that's how we actually reach the last mile customer, through all these different distribution partners as well. So our goal here right now is to basically create an ecosystem, right, which creates a chain reaction where a client could go to any one of our partners and be onboarded. And once they are onboarded, they can utilize what we are providing, right? This organization that we've basically generated for them to access different services from those same partners within our ecosystem. So not only limited to just one partner, but any partner within the ecosystem, could provide them with a service, and the customer could also, apply for a service from any one of these ecosystems. So that's a very, very key element. We're basically trying to create an open ecosystem.
It's a really important part of it, isn't it, as well? And like, you've got to create that foundation before you can move forward, because the technology is nothing without the partners here, right? It just doesn't have its application, really. Just going off piece slightly, Gabriel, I just want to go back to sort of the title of our case study about Chromepay is Solving Africa's Identity Crisis. And like, we touched on it at the beginning. How big is the problem in Africa of identity and kind of people missing those basic level things that they need? How big is it? What are we talking about here? Like, what's the scale?
So like I mentioned before, about 500 million Africans today don't have access to a trusted identity, right? So this basically makes it very, very difficult to access these financial services, and there's a lot of potential that once we bring them in, this will be beneficial for both parties, right? Where end users' lives can definitely be improved. Like I mentioned before, there's different services that can basically be used, like the credit, etc., that can actually help improve their business, but also from the banking side, scalability. I think that's very, very important as well.
Yeah.
We're not only creating a sustainable model for the consumer, but there's also sustainable models for banks, because at the end of the day, financial institutions, organizations also do need to grow. And when we allow them to grow, it also allows them to think and innovate of what new products their customers could need. So this does not only drive growth, but it also drives innovation.
Absolutely. And do the partners and the banks and the people that you talk to, they are interested in this as a solution, right? It seems very logical to them, you would say?
Yes, there's actually a great need within the country, with a few initiatives being led right now by the UN, the World Bank, etc. Which are called identity inclusion programs, etc. Each country basically has its own type. Okay, when I mean country, I mean countries which are facing this issue, these issues within the continent, right? So we are aligning with those goals, and obviously hoping to also help these initiatives move faster as well.
Yeah, because it's such a huge place, and it would be really naive to think that you could conquer it all in one go. Like each country has its own different set of rules and regs, and it's quite a complex situation, isn't it? But definitely a mission worth conquering, I would say, Gabriel, for sure. Okay, so in this there's a lot of talk at the moment about regulation, industry standards, scrutinies. I just want to put that question out there. What measures does Chromepay take to ensure compliance with financial regs, industry standards, and especially in this kind of time we're at now, where security and regulatory scrutiny seems to be really high? Like, what's Chromepay doing to make sure that you're good in this situation?
Okay. So we always operate according to the regulatory standards of each market that we operate in. Like we said, every country has a different their own thing. So that's one thing that we definitely value, and that's definitely important to us. All right. And secondly, we've actually put compliance teams in we've set up compliance teams in every market that we're in as well. So we're making sure that everything is according to standards. In addition to this, is that I think people are always worried about this. Is specifically we don't store any client data on chain, etc. We basically store it within local cloud servers, as well as local data centers. Actual data of clients is that's where it's actually stored, right? What we only have on chain is metadata, which is basically data of data. So we're never actually sharing raw data of any client. And we do value, obviously, always notifying the client. The client always has to give us explicit permission, right, in terms of providing them access of the data to a specific organization which may want to provide them with services. So we have really become strict. We are really stringent on that. We're not here just making sure that client data is not secure. So we've taken every single precaution that we can, and that is according to the regulatory standards, or sometimes we even try to go above and beyond.
Yeah. Okay, awesome, man. Like, I just wanted to touch on that. It's a question that obviously gets thrown around and needs to be addressed. And okay, so the next question. I mean, we're getting to the end, I think, and the last thing I want to ask you about is kind of the future for Chromepay. But before we go there, what stage is Chromepay at as a service, as a company right now? Are you rolling out? Can anybody, how can people sort of gain a better understanding of Chromepay and maybe even on board? Like, what stage are you at currently?
All right. We're actually scaling up right now in the markets we're in. We're working with a number of financial institutions, quite a lot actually, onboarding new financial institutions as well as new end users as well. So if you're in the markets that we're in, just like Ethiopia or Nigeria, etc., you always expect, you will see us soon. You will see us soon within your region, basically. Yeah.
Nice, man. All right, cool. So the final thing is we're going into 2024. We both said we were super excited. I mean, what's your vision? Firstly, a bit more long distance. What's your vision for digital payments and kind of you can talk about it with the sort of aspect of what you're trying to do. And what do you think users and investors can expect from Chromepay in the coming years? Like, what's on your kind of high level roadmap? What's your dream list, man? Like, where are you going with Chromepay?
Okay. So, I mean, just to address your first question right now, like short term, which is 2024, we're really focused on scaling. We're ramping up. Growth is very essential for us, and that's what we're doing right now from Q1. We've been growing at a very, very good pace, and obviously we generate revenue, good number of clients are coming in, etc. And actually, our solutions create that network effect that we were hoping to receive. So definitely 2024 is going to be lots of growth happening. Now, long term, like I mentioned before, we do value the partners that we have in our ecosystem, and we're going to definitely double down on that over the next 5 years or so, making sure we can grow the ecosystem to be much wider than it is. Because what we're doing right now is, if you think about it, right, we're at the first layer of what Chromepay is, which is, let's say, some sort of informal open banking ecosystem, with the ID, which opens access to all these different financial services. But the second layer, which we're actually going to peel off in the next year or so, is that open finance ecosystem of any financial service, not just banking services, but other financial services, which are, coming into the finance ecosystem. But where we really want to be in 5 years is we want to be able to create an open data ecosystem, right? And what I mean by that is when someone can just basically use their solution, not just to access a digital financial service, but other services beyond just a financial solution, such as, social security, land registration, these type of things. So that's where we see ourselves, 5-6 years from now, not just in the financial sector, but in the open ecosystem of open data.
Pretty amazing, man. Like an everyday, something that you imagine people would be using almost every day for their everyday lives, right? That's pretty amazing, man. I mean, it's an amazing mission that you guys are on, and I really love the whole idea and the ethos behind it as well. And it's been really cool to have you here, Gabriel, because I'm sure there's going to be a more opportunity to go through this later this year, because things are happening fast for you guys, right? And I think we'll possibly meet up again in a couple of months, and we'll have a lot more to talk about at that point as well. So I just want to thank you, man, like for spending time to come and tell the community about Chromepay. I think it's really important for the Fuse community to understand kind of who runs these companies, like who's the face behind the logo. I think it's very important. So thanks, man.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure, man. Absolutely. Finally, anywhere is there any links you want to chuck out there? Anything where people it's really piqued their interest, perhaps, and they're listening? How can they reach out to you? How can they perhaps ask some more questions to you? Like, what's your best form of contact, man?
Sure. Just head over to our website. You can find us at chromepay.io. You can check us out on LinkedIn at Chromepay. Those are the main channels you can basically contact us through. Obviously, if you know someone within our network, sure, you can connect with them, and they'll connect you with us as well. Always open to meeting new organizations, people, partners, potential partners, etc.
Perfect. So there's a link at the bottom there that I've just flashed up. If you guys want to scan that, it takes you to the case study for Chromepay that was on the Fuse website. At the top of there is all the links out to the Chromepay specific website, so you can find all of those as well. All right, cool. That will do it for today, I think, Gabriel. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, man, pleasure. Do you want to sign off with a goodbye and a thank you, and then that's it?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoy watching this, and yeah, thank you so much for having me.
No worries, man. And I think we'll be seeing you very soon. All right. So thanks everybody for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that big button with the word that begins with S in it, and make sure you subscribe to all the content that we produce. Thanks again, and we'll see you very soon.